Do you want to know why your YouTube marketing isn't working and how to fix it? We have Andrew Murdoch in today's episode that will be talking about how to grow your business with video marketing on YouTube. And welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services. And Andrew Murdoch is the founder of YT Era. And YT Era helps YouTube channels that care about solving problems that directly affect people's lives in a major way. YT Era helps channels solve the world's biggest problems in health, wealth, and relationships. So the first question is, what's the secret to your success?
Could not boil that down to one thing. I am going to cheat and give you multiple secrets. So one of them is definitely doing things that scare me. That's a big one. Another one is surrounding myself with really smart people, smarter than me, not too hard to do. And I got to squeeze in there the ability to recognize a need in the marketplace. Some people might call it a blue ocean opportunity, but being able to meet a need in the marketplace, and then if I could follow that up with something else, be good at what you do and be enjoyable to work with.
So tell us about how did you start doing YouTube marketing for businesses, and tell us about some of your most successful achievements you have had with your personal channel or other businesses that you have helped.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm sure the viewer, the listener watching and listening to this right now has heard the term before, burn the boats. But the way it happened for me is I had the boats burned for me. So it was back in 2018. I found myself in just a really dark time in my life. I found myself at rock bottom. And there's only two things that were able to help me completely change my life and turn my life around and get myself out of a giant mess. And it was actually getting addicted to YouTube content. So for me, back in 2018, the writing was on the wall in terms of the impact that YouTube videos have on people's lives in a really meaningful way. So after getting obsessed with certain YouTube channels, certain creators, certain videos, I was able to get my health and fitness right, get my finances right, and more importantly, I was able to get my mindset right because I wasn't speaking very kindly about myself in those days. So one thing led to another, and even though I was in a really dark time in my life, I didn't have any money to pay these experts to improve my life situation, but I was able to learn from them in an indirect manner, and they still benefited by that because they still got more views, more watch time, more subscribers from me, right? So the creator is still being benefited by that. And because of how YouTube is designed, YouTube is still paying that individual a percentage from the YouTube ad revenue, right? So that person is absolutely still getting compensated just because I'm watching their videos. So one thing led to another, and I realized, wait a second, if this is the impact YouTube could have on me and my life, there must be countless other people that have a similar experience. So one thing led to another, and I ended up, I was originally a social media expert, became a YouTube expert, left social media behind because, well, in my experience, when it comes to businesses marketing their services and products, the impact that YouTube has to their bottom line far exceeds any social media program or initiative a business can deploy. That is just my personal experience. I'm sure there's some social media people out there that would be very upset with me saying that. But when it comes to making an impact, attracting the right viewers, in my humble opinion, you can't do better than YouTube because the YouTube AI is the #1 video platform on the planet, amongst other things. And it is uniquely gifted at this one thing. It's better at it than anything else on the planet. It obsesses over one thing. All it does is put the perfect video in front of the perfect viewer at the perfect time. Now, why is that so transformational for a business? Well, because the #1 pain point for any business around the planet is putting their brand in front of the perfect prospect at the perfect time. And when I realized that, I was like, wait a second, this is a match made in heaven. So I started investing in myself in terms of programs and mentorship and coaches and guides and experts. And I became a YouTube consultant, and I started offering my coaching and my services to people that wanted to grow their business via a YouTube channel. And then a few years ago, I realized, well, I noticed a blue ocean opportunity, right? So I know there's a lot of successful entrepreneurs and business owners watching this and listening to this podcast. And what I realized was that a lot of successful entrepreneurs are very good at what they do, but that doesn't mean they're really good at growing a YouTube channel. Because having a YouTube channel is akin to growing a little mini business within inside your business. And I mean that. It's got expenses, it's got revenue, it's got resource management. And I had people asking me, like, Andrew, how do I even hire a video editor? I don't even know what questions to ask the video editor to ensure that they're a good fit. And I had to hear that a few times before I finally woke up to the problem, and then I decided to solve that problem. So we offer done-for-you services at YTR simply because of that pain point. So now the business owner, all they have to do is hit the record button, and then they give my team that recording, and we take it from there. My clients don't even touch their own YouTube channel. We handle the video editing, the thumbnails, the titles, the project management, the channel management, you name it, we do it. And that's how we've ended up where we are today, just a little less than 3 years later. And now that to answer your second question, what are some, successful case studies? I got to be careful when I answer that question, Lily, because unfortunately the FTC that you and your audience may be familiar with has been dropping the hammer on a lot of big time marketers lately. So I used to be a lot more forthcoming with some of the numbers. And unfortunately, the FTC means that because of the actions the FTC has taken, it means marketers like me have to be a little bit more careful about our case studies. So let's see here. I'm going to walk a fine line here and say, I've got one client in financial services. They've got a little over 10,000 subscribers, so very small YouTube channel in YouTube terms. But if there's anything that I've seen since I've worked in this industry over the years, it's that you don't need a large audience to make a massive impact to your bottom line. You need the right audience, not the largest audience. You don't need the most subscribers. You need the right viewers. The right viewers is far more valuable to you and your business than getting 1 million subscribers. Because you know what? If someone comes along and subscribes to your channel and leaves, that doesn't do you any benefit whatsoever, right? Including you, Lily. I mean, you've got a great podcast here. Someone comes along and subscribes and never watches another one of your videos. That doesn't help you. And you're not able to impact that individual's life and help them make better decisions with these guests that you've been interviewing, right? So in that one particular case study, financial services, small channel, 10,000 subs, they've grossed over 2.5 million in trackable revenue. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because again, the FTC is unfortunately making it difficult for marketers like me to share more details.
Thank you. What would you say are the key elements that the right thumbnail should contain in order to have a higher effectiveness in terms of attracting more subscribers and more attention to that particular video?
I love that question. I'm hoping you're asking me that question because you're thinking about your own YouTube channel. Is that fair to say? Is that?
Well, I'm always incentivized to ask certain questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very smart question. And I love that you asked that. So let's zoom out a little bit and then we'll zoom back in. Let's zoom out and take a high angle view here. We can break YouTube success into a very simple 3-step process. It's literally this simple. It's not complicated. It's also not easy. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. Okay. Step 1 is get the viewer. How do we get the viewer? Topic, title, thumbnail. I don't care if you have the world's best thumbnail and title. If you pick a boring topic that no one resonates with, no one's going to click on it. So the thumbnail is important, but I would actually say that the idea, the video topic, is actually far more important than the video packaging being the thumbnail and the title. So that's step 1, get the viewer. And if you don't get super crystal clear on that, nothing else matters. So step 2, keep the viewer. We can divide that second step into 2 categories. One is the content quality, the content coming out of our mouths, this valuable enough for the viewer. And the second component of keeping the viewer is your production quality, right? How well can the viewer see and hear you? That's really important. Audio is actually the number one most important aspect when it comes to YouTube videos. And then number 3 is, how do we get the viewer back? And this is a step that, in my opinion, more people screw up than anything else. For the most part, people understand steps 1 and 2. A lot of people get lazy when it comes to get to step 3, and they don't even understand how vitally important it is. Because YouTube pays very close attention to that metric. How many returning viewers are you getting every month? And is that number going up? Because if you're getting lots of returning viewers, that means you make high quality, valuable content, and people keep coming back to get more from you, right? But now that's the high angle view. Let's go back to step 1. Let's assume that you've identified a really great video topic idea that you know is going to grab attention. Well, to answer your question about the most important elements of a thumbnail, in my opinion, more people out here are guilty of this one thing than anything else. Less is more. I think a lot of people try to squeeze a lot of information into a thumbnail, and honestly, you shouldn't be doing anything more than 3 elements in my view. Sometimes 2 elements is more than enough, right? Less is more. A lot of people try to cram a lot of text into a thumbnail, which is ridiculous, because if you cram too much text in the thumbnail, the text gets really tiny. And then when someone's scrolling through YouTube on their mobile device, they can't even read the text because you have it so small, right? That's absolutely not best practice, right? And again, a lot of people try to cram a lot of stuff in, and then it's just distracting. Or I shouldn't say distracting, it's just confusing. As soon as you cram too many elements into a thumbnail, now you're making the viewer think. I want you to remind yourself, don't make the viewer think. It should be painfully obvious what this video is about, described in this simple image. If I have to stop and try to figure out what your video is about, I guarantee you the viewer won't do that. The viewer will scroll right past your thumbnail and click on somebody else's that has much more simple packaging, and it's easier to determine what this video is about. Because nobody wants to waste their time and attention, because it's the most valuable asset we all have, right? So it's got to be simple and easy to understand. I mean, the human brain is only about 2 to 3% of the human body, but it requires 25% of our energy output, right? It's a total pig. It's a hog. And we evolved to conserve energy. Our species evolved to always save energy because we never know when we're going to need it, right? So the brain, the mind is wired to not think as much as possible. So as soon as you try to make your viewer think to understand what your video is about, you've already lost, right? So keep the elements to a minimum in the thumbnail, make it easy to understand. It's got to grab attention because you're trying to sell the click, right? A really fantastic strategy that I don't see enough of is make your thumbnail a negative theme and then pair that negative theme with a positive title. That negative and positive tension will drive up the curiosity factor way up to 11, and then you're going to be much more likely to get the click. And if it's not working for you, you could always reverse it and see if that does any benefit for you. You could have a positively themed thumbnail with a negative themed title and see if that does anything for you as well. The important thing to keep in mind here is every single video you upload is a split test. And when you see an underperformer, you want to ask yourself, why did that video underperform? Or when you see a high performer, same thing, ask yourself, why did that video do better than normal? And then if you can identify certain patterns and key factors that separate that video from the rest, then you should be able to duplicate the effort the next time around, right? So there's a lot to think about in video packaging, but just for me to wrap this up and land the plane on this topic, don't make it the last item on your to-do list. A lot of businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs see the value in having a YouTube channel, but the thumbnail is literally the last thing that they think about. So they make the video, they record it, they edit it, they do all of this work to it. They think it's amazing. And then they upload it to YouTube. And now they're thinking, oh, I need a thumbnail. They quickly go to Canva or download something for free. And then they don't give it any effort whatsoever. And then they get disappointed when their video only gets 7 views, when they literally skipped step 1, which is the most important step. If you can't figure out step 1 and nail step 1, you don't have a hope or a prayer to get to steps 2 and 3. So think of it that way.
Thank you. Can you give us an example of how this positive and negative titling works? So if you could title this particular video, how would you do that?
Okay. So how about this? How about something along the lines of a picture? So you could have pictures of both of us on the thumbnail, which is a very quick and easy way to send a message to the viewer that, oh, this is an interview or this is a podcast. And to really crank that up, you can superimpose some pictures of microphones in front of our mouse, right? Right away, without any text, right away, you've communicated to your viewers, this is an interview format, this is a podcast format, right? Plus the length of the video will likely be a huge indicator for people in terms of that too, because interviews / podcasts tend to be longer than talking head videos, how-to videos, listicle videos, what have you. Not always, but tends to be, okay? Now, if you wanted to insert some text to give a little bit extra context to the viewers, and like I said, if we're going to follow that strategy, negative thumbnail with a positive title, you could probably put some text in between you and I. If you put me on one side of the thumbnail, you on the other side of the thumbnail, maybe the text in the middle, and because we already have two elements on the thumbnail, you and I, we need to really be mindful that we're going to use as little text as possible, not because, again, we don't want to make the viewer think, right? So how about this? Worst YouTube mistakes. 3 words. And it's immediately obvious to the viewer, oh, they're going to talk about the worst mistakes people make when they have a YouTube channel, right? Worst YouTube mistakes. And if you don't like that, you can massage it, maybe add a 4th word, replace some of those words. But again, you want to think about this in minimalist terms as possible. And when you're putting the text on the thumbnail, some words can be different. All the text doesn't have to be the same color. All of the text doesn't have to be the same size. So you can mess with certain words. If there's a certain trigger word, in this case, it might be YouTube. Maybe the word YouTube is larger than the other words, and maybe it's a different color than the other words, right? Again, this is something that you can play around yourself, or if you have a thumbnail artist, graphic designer in your team, you could certainly coach your team member on this, right? So that's the thumbnail. We got the thumbnail, a pretty good concept around the thumbnail. How do we pair a positive title with that negative theme thumbnail? So again, let's, for an example's sake, worst YouTube mistakes. Maybe your title goes along the lines of, I wish I knew this about YouTube 5 years ago. Positive. Or finally, the YouTube solution you've been waiting for. Something to that effect. And because this is a podcast, and I took a look at your podcast before we jumped on the call, I noticed that you've been putting your name and your guest's name in the title. Now, it's not a bad idea for SEO reasons, but what a lot of people fail to understand is that search traffic on YouTube is only responsible for 10% of the global views. 70% of the global views come from suggested, the 2 recommendation algorithms, which are suggested and browse. So when you have a super long title, and many podcasts do, you'll end up doing a truncation, meaning when you go to YouTube on any of your device, the title will be truncated, which means the viewer won't see the full title, but they'll see ... right? So the most important words that you want to trigger a response from the viewer, you want at the beginning of the title, and the less important keywords and search terms, you can stuff at the end of the title. Now, in my situation, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, Lily. I'm not a wildly famous person. I'm not. I don't even think you should put my name in the title. And I tell people that all the time when they're interviewing me on a podcast. I don't think you should put my name in the sometimes they still do it anyways. And I get it. People, because of my business, people are all going into YouTube searching for my name because they're trying to see what else I've done, right? But I don't think there's enough searches for my name for you to put it in the title. And then sometimes people put the name in the thumbnail. You can take it or leave it in my view. But the one thing I do want to get across to you is if you're putting in the title, don't put it in the thumbnail. If you're putting the name in the thumbnail, don't put it in the title. You never want to repeat yourself. And a lot of people make this mistake. The same text, the text in the title is the exact same text in the thumbnail. You're just repeating yourself twice and you're wasting the real estate.
Thank you. Would you say that in terms of getting people to watch the video, how important is it to say something in particular at the very beginning? Because I find when I'm looking on YouTube and I find people rambling on and it takes them a long time to get to the actual topic, I'll just scroll and find something else. So what do you think should be ideally said at the very beginning of the video to ensure retention? Because YouTube rewards rewards your channel for keeping your listeners there for a long time.
Exactly right. Now we're talking about step 2. Step 2 is keep the viewer, right? Now, in your situation, you're interviewing your guests. You don't really know what's going to be said until it's said, right? So you have 2 options, okay? And both options are used today with very successful podcasts. And this would be something, Lily, where if I was your YouTube coach, I would say, test it. So I'm going to share 2 options with you. You could do one option for 5 videos, and then do the other option for another 5 videos and put both of those groups of 5 videos in groups, which is something you can do through YouTube Studio, and then just compare the data and see if there's a clear winner between the two. I wouldn't do it just with one video and one video because that's not enough data. You would want to do 5 or 10 videos with one strategy, 5 or 10 videos with the other strategy, group those two groups up, and then compare the data, okay? So let's start with option number 1. You could do the interview, in this case with me, and we're talking about YouTube, and then at the end of the interview, when I drop, and you have a better idea of how the conversation goes, you can then sit down, look at the camera, and record a very compelling hook that you would then put at the very beginning of the episode, because now you know what we discussed. Now you have that relevant context. Because the hook is really important. It's a really important part of the video because the hook has to deliver on the video packaging. Okay? If you put something in the thumbnail and the title and it's not mentioned within the first 10 seconds of the video, the viewer will feel tricked. Never, ever risk tricking the viewer. You know, a lot of people are guilty of putting something on the thumbnail that has nothing to do with the video because they just want to get the click. But unfortunately, that strategy is a very 2017 strategy. YouTube is tuned for satisfaction. That's the only thing YouTube cares about. In the hierarchy of things, the thing at the very top, YouTube cares about viewer satisfaction. That's it. If you optimize for viewer satisfaction, everything else will fall into place. So make sure that first 10 seconds supports the elements that you have in the thumbnail and the title to reassure the viewer. When the viewer clicks on this video, they'll know within that first 10 seconds, I'm in the right place. This is exactly why I clicked on this video. I know I'm going to learn something juicy here that's going to help me grow my business. Okay? So you can do that. Just record a custom hook after your guest leaves. Alternatively, which is this second option is also very successful and very popular, is what you do is you end up waiting until the video is done. And then if you're editing it yourself or you're passing it over to a video editor on your team, you ask the editor to pick out a really compelling, controversial, shocking soundbite that is either said by you or the guest. And then you get the editor to copy that soundbite and paste it at the very beginning, maybe with some text along the bottom that says, coming up, ... So now it serves as almost like a trailer. Like big budget Hollywood movies that spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a single movie, they'll then go spend another $100 million on the trailer and marketing the movie, right? Think of it as your movie trailer, your YouTube video trailer. You're just teasing the viewer about this amazing content that's coming up, but hey, you got to stick around and get the goods later on, right? You might want to grab a soundbite that literally ends right before you get to the juicy stuff, because then it's going to be maybe a little frustrating for the viewer, but that's marketing for you. You don't want to give away all the value right away. You want to hook the viewer in the very beginning, and then as soon as that hook is done, that's when your episode actually starts, and that's when you're going to be reading out your bio, just like you read out my bio at the beginning of this. Now, I've noticed a lot of podcast guests do a really bad job with the bio. Now, you may have noticed my bio is on the short side, and I do that intentionally because nobody cares. To a certain degree, you, the listener, wants to know, who is this guy, Andrew Murdoch, and does he actually know what he's talking about? The viewer is going to want to have some level of context, and I get that. But the viewer doesn't need a 10 minutes, the viewer doesn't care if I like long walks on the beach. I mean, come on. We got to get into it. We got to serve that viewer. We got to zero in on the pain points that the viewer cares about. And in this situation, on this episode, you viewer, you want to know how you can grow your business even faster and make even more money using a YouTube channel. And that's what we're going to talk about.
Thank you. Give me an example of how a soundbite would sound like for this particular video.
You're here because you got a business. You're an entrepreneur. You have a product or service that adds a lot of value to the marketplace. And you want to know how to get an unfair advantage over your competitors. Maybe your competitor has a YouTube channel, maybe they don't. But YouTube is the #1 video platform on the planet. YouTube is also the #1 podcast platform on the planet. YouTube is the #1 streaming platform on the planet. You know why? Because YouTube is the new TV. And YouTube is tuned to put the perfect video in front of the perfect viewer at the perfect time. And your brand desperately needs to be put in front of the perfect prospect at the perfect time. So what are you doing? Use YouTube. There you go. You can use that.
Thank you. And then you would go coming up, Andrew Murdoch from YT era.
YT era. No, I wouldn't, because I'm not famous. If I was a famous YouTube educator, then yeah, maybe you would want something like that. But nobody cares about Andrew Murdoch. And you watching this right now, I'm speaking to you, the entrepreneur, you, the business owner. Nobody cares who you are. Your prospects, your viewers, they care about their main pain points, their struggles, their challenges. Let me paint you a picture. As a marketer, I have the unfair advantage because I have access to a lot of data. And because I have access to a lot of data, I can make certain assumptions about people that I've never met before. Lily, you and I are meeting for the very first time right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
I can make certain assumptions about you. I know when you're searching for something, when you're looking for information, you're probably going to go to Google.
Yes.
Most people do. I can also make an assumption that when you want to learn about something, when you want to go deep on a topic, you're probably going to go to YouTube, because it happens every single day. How do I write and sell a book? Every single day, someone goes to YouTube and types that in, but I guarantee you, no one goes to Facebook and types in that search. Nobody goes to LinkedIn and types in that search. Nobody goes to TikTok and types in that search. Maybe a few people do, but even Gen Z, there have been some surveys that have been released lately. Even Gen Z is wishing that TikTok was never invented. Unfortunately, that's what the surveys are telling us. Whereas Gen Z loves YouTube, because when you want to go deep on a topic, you can't go deep on a subject like learning how to write and sell a book by watching a 35-second Instagram reel or a 45-second TikTok. But you can learn how to write and sell a book by watching a 10-minute YouTube video, a 15-minute YouTube video. You can learn about how you can serve your audience. There's a great book out there called They Ask, You Answer. Get the book and then just follow the instructions in that book, making videos around the questions your ideal customers have. Because if you're in business, you probably have collected an FAQ list of questions that are constantly being lobbed at you. And you know the main pain points that your customers and clients are struggling with. So why not sit down, hit the record button, and make videos on all of those topics? Because if your customers and clients are asking those questions, I guarantee there's lots and lots of other people out there that don't even know you exist, but they're going to YouTube every day and they're hoping to find content that answers those pain points.
Thank you. How do you find clickbaity thumbnails and titles? What I mean by that is something that will be so attractive to the watcher that they are going to be willing to click on the video as opposed to not. Because the reason I'm asking this is because you would look in Google and you can find, let's say, 10,000 people a month or 1 million people a month are searching for manifestation, they're searching for whatever. And then you do a video about that, but then you don't get like millions of views. So how do you kind of make an attractive title and thumbnail that does get those leads and clients and subscribers?
Very good question. YouTube is amazing at what it does and it works, but you got to be a student. You got to be a student of YouTube. You got to learn how YouTube works. And to a certain degree, you even need to understand human psychology and human behavior. So what I do for my clients and what I coach and advise my students to do is do some reconnaissance in the sense of what I like to call a comparable analysis. So what you do is first you got to identify who your target market is. Like that's number one. If you don't know who your viewer is, you're already behind the eight ball. Okay. When someone pays me for a consult, one of the first questions I ask is, tell me who your viewer is. Unfortunately, sometimes I'll get a sentence, maybe 2 sentences, and then they look at me and I'm like, okay, well, we've got some work to do here, because you can't boil down the complexities of your viewer avatar in 1 or 2 sentences. It's just not enough. I'm sorry. So getting crystal clear on who it is your target audience is and how we're going to serve them, that's number one. Now, once you've identified that, you go into YouTube and you review and you collect a list of 10 YouTube channels, 20 YouTube channels, hell, even 30 YouTube channels that your ideal viewer avatar loves to watch and binge watch. And then you analyze their best performing videos and their most recent uploaded videos, and you look at their packaging, not because you're going to copy them. I don't advise directly copying, and there is a lot of people guilty of doing that on YouTube, okay? But if you're able to identify certain patterns, certain techniques and methods in video packaging that are overperforming. And that's the beautiful thing about YouTube. If you go to a YouTube channel that's not yours, you can look at the most recent videos and you can see the views. Now, you can't unfortunately determine if all of those views are organic or if they're supplementing some of their organic views with paid views. Never do that, by the way. Not a fan. Do not advise that whatsoever. I've seen way too many problems about that revolve around that over the years, and you can cause some significant damage to your YouTube channel. There is some drama around that. Some people advise it, some people don't. I absolutely do not advise paying for views, sending views to your organic channel. I've seen too much damage done, okay? Don't do it. But when you're looking at the views, if you see lots and lots of views, and you click on the video and you only see 3 comments, I guarantee you those are not organic views. People are paying, the YouTube channel is paying for those views. And in my opinion, they're wasting their money, okay? But this is why you should always work with an expert. This is why you should always work with a YouTube consultant, a YouTube coach, someone who knows what they're doing, right? So that you don't waste your money. Don't waste your money, don't waste your time. But if you can identify the videos on these other channels with higher than average views, then that presents an opportunity for you to ask yourself really insightful questions. Why did those videos perform well? And how can I do it, but better? Identify their video packaging strategies and methods, and ask yourself how you can improve upon it. Ask yourself how you can do better. It's not about knowing all the right answers. It's about asking the right questions. And thankfully, it's 2024 at the time of this recording. You have access to ChatGPT and Claude and all of these amazing AI chatbots, these LLMs that allow you to share insightful data, right? You can collect the data, create some spreadsheets, and then have these chatbots analyze the data for you and create some suggestions or recommendations based off of these highly performing YouTube videos. How would you recommend I package my next 5 video interviews on my podcast? What recommendations do you have for me on how I can better optimize my thumbnails to attract this viewer avatar? And yes, when you're working with an AI chatbot like that, you absolutely want to show a detailed description of who your viewer avatar is so that the AI chatbot knows the audience that we're trying to attract.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.